Okay. Now, this next topic is how to find what needs to be done in order to comply with the ADA. So we're looking at the 2010 ADA standards. The 2010 ADA standards have they've got a table of contents basically. And again, I just highlight for you the URL. There's a table of contents and it shows what is regulated, and you can look up various elements of the building to see exactly what the requirements are. So, for example, here in Chapter 4, it addresses ramps, curb ramps. Here in Chapter 5, we have parking spaces, stairways. So it's fairly simple to look up the different elements of a business. A lot of businesses that I've represented have had issues that they were sued on related to parking spaces or ramps or, the accessible toilet facilities or, another big one is always dining tables or countertops. And the exact specifications that have to be met are all listed in the 2010 ADAAG, and they can all be looked up very simply and in order to ensure compliance, which is certainly a legal obligation and something that should be done by all businesses in the country. Make sure that you are compliant with the ADA and with all of these specific architectural requirements to the extent that it's readily achievable to do that if you existed before these regulations came into being. And if you came into existence after these regulations came into being, it should have been done in a way that complies with these requirements unless one of the very limited exceptions applies. Of course, I use the word you here again in a very general sense to mean anyone really who has a business. Okay. So let's look through some of these. I just picked out some at random that are in my anecdotal experience, very commonly encountered in ADA litigation. And let's just go through some of these issues together. So 303, changes in level. Okay, take a look at this. If you have a change in level that's vertical, if there is a change in level that's vertical, okay, it can be up to 1/4 inch without having to do anything at all, okay? If there's a change in inch that's up to a 1/2 inch, it can be beveled. But beyond the 1/2 inch, it has to be ramped. And this is all spelled out very clearly in the ADAAG, in this publicly available information that anybody can look up and anybody can see. Right? So it says right here, when changes in level are permitted in floor or ground surfaces, changes in level of 1/4 inch high maximum shall be permitted to be vertical. Changes between 1/4 inch and a minimum of 1/2 inch high maximum shall be beveled with a slope not steeper than 1 to 2. Changes in level greater than a 1/2 inch high shall be ramped and shall comply with sections 405 and 406. I mean, this is very simple to comply with, and yet many businesses, many places of public accommodation just don't. They just have steps and vertical changes in elevation, and they don't really give any thought to this. And again, that is something that oftentimes causes not only inaccessibility, but lawsuits. Okay, so we discussed ramps in the last slide, and let's look at ramp requirements. Again, section 405, ramps. Very easy to look up in the 2010 standards. Okay, ramp runs shall have a running slope not steeper than 1 to 12. In existing sites, buildings, and facilities, ramps shall be permitted to have slopes steeper than 1 to 12 as long as they comply with this table where such slopes are necessary due to space limitations. And here you see that for a rise up to 3 inches, if necessary due to space limitations, the slope can be steeper than 1 to 10, but not steeper than 1 to 8. And for 6 inches, it can be steeper than 1 to 12, but not steeper than 1 to 10. So the standard ramp is 1 to 12. Okay, so you have 12 inches of ramp for every 1 inch of vertical rise in elevation. If necessary, in an existing facility, you can sometimes go a little steeper for limited vertical rises, if necessary, due to space limitations. But again, this is all spelled out very clearly. It's really quite simple. And it's all spelled out in Section 405. And again, ramps, an issue that I myself have seen over and over and over again in lawsuits. And vertical changes in elevation, of course, present a major challenge to customers with disabilities who visit places of public accommodation. So, it's a win-win. A business limits its risk of litigation and creates access for more customers by complying with these requirements. And I've picked out a few more issues here just to go over. Sales and service counters, Section 227, and this goes over how, what the sales and service counters need to be, how many there need to be, based on how many checkout aisles there are for the service counter, how high they need to be, which other provisions they need to comply with. It's all right here. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here with specifics in terms of inches and all that, because it should be fairly easy to comply with. And if not, there are a lot of ADA experts and consultants out there, and even just general contractors who are familiar with these issues, who can help to make sure that everything is ADA compliant. Again, I'm just picking out very common areas here. Section 604.8, toilet compartments, the dimensions of the toilet compartment, what it needs to look like, the floor space that needs to be available so that somebody in a wheelchair can use the bathroom. These things are laid out very clearly for anyone who wants to read them to see, to make sure that they are removing barriers and complying with the ADA. Okay, next slide. I picked out another area here. This has to do with carpeting. If you think about it, if carpeting is too high, it can present an issue for wheelchair users, and that is regulated in here as well. Floor and ground surfaces, Section 302. Openings, grates, that type of thing. There's regulations about how large the openings can be in grates for obvious reasons. Again, because there are challenges to wheelchair users otherwise. Pool lifts. Here's an area that was first regulated in 2010, pool lifts. In 2012, March 15, 2012 is when the 2010 regulations came into actual force. And that I was involved with, there was a spate of pool lift lawsuits against hotels and small motels that had not installed pool lifts, or there's other ways to comply as well. It's all within the regulations, but the pool lift is a very popular one. Publicly available pools need to have a pool lift meeting all of these specifications. This says how much clear deck space needs to be around the pool lift. It's not complicated. It's really not very complicated. And, a business owner could flip through the table of contents in the 2010 accessibility guidelines, look at different areas that apply to that person's business, go and see what exactly those areas need to look like in terms of their specifications. And, it's the law, but it's also risk management, because a lawsuit could happen at any time for violation of these requirements.